Well, welcome back, everybody. We're continuing this series on Jesus and mental health. And today we're sitting down with Sara, an attender here at Encounter for a little while now. And I'm so grateful, first of all, that you've decided to join us and share a bit of your story. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the journey that God has taken you on with being a caregiver of those with dementia.
I'm Sara Baar. I'm a certified medical assistant, usually for about 36 years. The last 5 years, I've worked for a wonderful program called Care Resources, who comes alongside the elderly population. Actually, not so elderly because it's 56 and above. And most recently, I've started being a medical assistant the last year so that I can be with the participants a little bit more, as well as downsize my time and spend more quality time with some family things going on.
Yeah. So this is something that a space that you've been in for a little while now.
Yes, for 5 years total.
Yeah.
I have been.
The journey is also personal for you.
Yes.
Would you share a little bit about that story?
So my brother was recently diagnosed with a rare form of Alzheimer's. So I'm helping them kind of go through that, as well as I'm on standby for her as a caregiver to try to give her support. But my journey really began with my father 12 years ago. He moved into our house here in Grand Rapids. It was a difficult decision. Most of my siblings were behind me. We knew that we needed to take him out of the area that he was born and raised, wanted to die there. But my aunt and my younger sister were against it. So with that in mind, we needed him up here where there were more support systems. Grand Rapids is an excellent area when you're going through dementia and you need other resources. He lived with me in my house, and my oldest son and his family lived with us. So he also came alongside and helped to take care of Grandpa while I was working. Dad also went to Sara Care during the day.
Sara Care.
Sara Care. It's an assisted living type situation, a daycare situation for older adults.
Gotcha.
And he was there during the day when I was at work.
Yeah.
Then on the weekends and evenings, he was my responsibility. A lot of sleepless nights. I was up because you have one ear always listening. Is he getting up? Even though we had our house safeguarded, I knew he couldn't get out, he couldn't hurt himself. And then he decided that he wanted to live on his own again. So we did put him into assisted living. Again, a friend came alongside. God sent me the right people at the right time. It was just so wonderful that we found a place for him to go live at. And he lived there for about 8 months until he passed away.
Yeah.
And it was just, taking him out, doing things. They work at a slower pace. And in the busy hustle of days when you want to get out and you want to get things done, you have to kind of slow down your pace and, take time. They love to go out and go shopping and things like that. But
since you've been in this space, professionally, personally, for a while, I'm sure people have come along and asked you some questions about dementia, about care for those with dementia. What are some of those questions? And what are some of the answers that come along with?
No question is bad to ask it. And a lot of people are hesitant. Am I going to catch it? Am I going to, get dementia? Or what is life going to be like? Tell me exactly what's going to happen. And you can't. Dementia takes its own turns. They can become people that you wouldn't even recognize, which is sad. And I've known wonderful, wonderful people that turn hateful and spiteful. And my dad did that at a time. And that's where you have to just give them grace and know that that's not them. Know the things that they say is not them. It's the disease process. It's the same thing. Why does dementia happen?
Yeah.
We really don't know. But if you can live in the moment and hang on to those joys. There are certain times. My father loved homemade bread, so I made sure he had homemade bread.
Yeah.
And I made sure that I visited him and brought him the donuts, or we would take him out for those special things that he loved. And you could still see, yes, he remembered those
He's
things.
still there.
He's still there.
Right?
Yes.
And in time, that must get harder to recognize how Dad is still there
Mm-hmm.
because it's so much of the disease.
Yeah.
But I so appreciate that word of trying to separate that off and say, that's not him talking, that's this thing talking.
Yeah. And a lot of people would get mad and argue. It's no good. No good can come of arguing with a
To
person.
respond to the disease.
Right.
Right? Because you're
Right.
not arguing with a person.
Right.
You're arguing with the disease.
With the disease.
And you won't win. Nobody wins
No.
on that one.
Or say, well, don't you remember we talked about this? No, more than likely they won't remember,
No.
unfortunately.
What have you learned on the journey?
Grace. You've got to give yourself grace. And allow yourself some time, be it go to a support group, go out for an hour and take a walk. I did a lot of bike rides. I did walks. Again, I was lucky enough that I had someone in there. When my dad moved into the assisted living, I would stop and see him on the way home from work. So I had that time to kind of
The
hunker
downtime.
down and downtime and get ready to see him and things like that. But you really need to, at times you're going to feel God's not there, and he is there. He's holding you up at times, and he's walking by you, but you also need to give yourself time and give yourself space. And the big word for me was grace.
Grace.
And my oldest sister would come into town and take over for a week to give me some time, and she kept saying, Sarah, you got to give yourself grace. Just give yourself grace.
It's a good word.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. You mentioned some resources. You specifically, Grand Rapids has a lot of resources available.
Yes.
If somebody is maybe on the early side of being a caregiver, where would you direct them to go? What are some of those resources that you've benefited from?
So the first thing is have the difficult conversations early.
Difficult conversations.
Yes. Dave and I do this all the time. His daughters aren't, and my sons aren't ready to listen to it. But
You and your husband.
Yes.
Yeah.
How, end of life, what do you want for end of
Okay.
life? What do you want if you do have dementia? What do you see me taking care of you? What do you see? And then you need to seek out lawyers or to make sure you have your durable power of attorney or all of these things, because you could develop dementia from a stroke. You could develop, other things could happen. So obviously a lawyer, things like that you can put into place. The other thing is there's care resources. Area Agency on Aging is an excellent resource. 211, Sarah Care. They all have social workers that can come alongside you. I would love to do anything possible and help direct. You have the conversation so that do you want to stay in your home? My dad, we tried for the longest time to keep him in his home. It was southern Michigan. It was a 2.5-hour drive for myself to go down there. And there weren't people we could put into place. There wasn't a safe place to put him. So, that was one of the reasons why he came up to Grand Rapids and lived.
And you found those resources.
But have them early, the conversations early, so you know what people want and what their desires are.
Transitioning a little, it's difficult for us to talk about in the church sometimes because we often think about faith is something intellectual. And we have to push back a little bit on that, right? Because Jesus didn't come to save your brain, but your heart, your whole self, right? And we know that, but we still put a lot of emphasis on this intellectual assent to who Jesus is. Do you believe that Jesus is your Lord and Savior? Do you believe that he has risen from the dead and died for victory over the grave and your sins? Do you believe these things? But this is a disease that attacks our very capacity to believe things, to understand them. Coupled with what you have shared with your dad's journey of there's at times where he seems like a different person. Where is Jesus when all of this is going on? How do we hold on to faith when somebody can't articulate that belief anymore, and they seem like a different person.
Mm-hmm. God is there. God is always there. He's got them in there, wrapped in his loving arms. And the wonderful part is when you've made that profession of faith, that's not going to change. It's in there, and God knows your heart. God knows your whole being. It's not going to make you a different person to God. Yeah. So I really, really feel that he, in the process of walking alongside, he grieves for you.
Yeah.
And he took care of and healed the lepers he was with. When you look at when he was preaching on earth, the type of people that he was around, it was the people that had dementia. It was the people possessed and everything. Yeah. And he came for them. He came for them.
Yeah, and he still does.
So you know that he's with them still. Yeah. And that's the other reason why you just need to just let what the people say or what they do, that's not them.
Yeah.
It's really not them.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful Sunday school teacher that went 180 degrees opposite of what she was. Different. And her daughters were terrified of what mom was doing. It wasn't mom. You know, there is things my dad did. It wasn't my dad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you have some Bible verses that you go to or that you have gone to, maybe for hope, maybe for encouragement along the way, maybe to be reminded of some truths again and again that you needed to hear because it became hard?
I have one that I remembered from my dad a lot, and it was Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. I just pictured him being upheld by God during the times when it's like, oh, Dad, this isn't you. I know it's not you.
Yeah.
The other things that I clung to was, with God, all things are possible. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That was the only way I could get through a lot of what I was going through. He gave me the strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I look back, and it was a rough time to get through.
Yeah. It's the old adage that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. He does.
Yes.
And that's where he shows up, right?
Yes.
It's more. Yeah. It's way too much than what you and I can handle.
Yeah.
But that's where God shows up and gives us that supernatural strength to keep on doing it.
Yes.
Keep on providing that care. Yeah. I'm imagining somebody who's watching right now who's in the middle of it. Or maybe they're just starting off on this journey and they're scared. They're terrified of what comes next because there's so much that is unknown. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you wouldn't mind taking a moment as we close out and share with them what your hope for them in this role is.
First off, please, please, please don't walk this alone. There are people I would be willing to come alongside you, and there is help. If you try to do it all yourself, you're going to get tired out and weary. And you need to have a support system of some type so that you can have some rest and that you can refresh and be the best possible caregiver. So I think that would be the biggest takeaway.
Don't walk this road alone.
No.
Thank you so much for being here and for opening up and for sharing part of the journey that God has brought you on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.